After months of research, the answer was obvious. Remove the foods causing the health problems and eat what our body actually needs. And it worked. Our body feels better, energy improves, and the joint pain is finally starting to lift. And then our blood work comes back. The doctor explains the disappointing results and attributes it to the new diet. All that red meat, eggs, animal fat. We're not eating any grains or sugar. The doctor connects the dots in the way that doctors do, right? The lab results show elevated uric acid. The diet contains a lot of purines, and the conclusion is obvious. So we're told to stop the red meat. We've given a prescription, and we're supposed to be back there in 3 months. Despite how good we feel, despite the reduction in pain, despite the weight loss, the numbers take precedence. But the problem is, the blood tests are not contradicting the amazing health that we were experiencing. They're actually confirming it, but just in a way that our doctor has never been taught to read. Please subscribe. Elevated uric acid on a blood test is a legitimate alarm. I'm not disputing that. Doctors are right to be concerned. Chronically elevated uric acid has been connected to very serious conditions that none of us want. Trust me, we don't want them. That means your doctor should take a high reading as a serious sign of potential problems if it is chronic. So, your doctor wanting to see you again in 3 months is absolutely right. If joint pain wasn't the reason for that doctor's visit, it might have become an issue eventually. Chronically high uric acid can lead to gout, that painful crystallizations that makes it feel horrific when you try to walk. It can lead to kidney stones, which honestly, I've seen people double over in pain, sweating because of a kidney stone. But it will even get stepped up to a more problematic level when we're talking about conditions like kidney disease, which is the progressive loss of kidney function. And that can lead to stuff like 3 days a week of dialysis treatments, which is 3 to 5 hours each of those 3 days. Well, nobody wants to be doing that. I know someone who was doing that, and it was horrific. You can't plan anything. You can't go on vacation. It takes over your life. There's also cardiovascular disease to worry about. Cardiovascular disease is still the #1 killer of women, despite everything we've been told about heart health. We are still succumbing to that. And then you have metabolic syndrome. I'm going to say that's the one that has been discussed the most extensively in our keto carnivore community, because it is a cluster of condition that drives diabetes, obesity, and heart disease simultaneously. And then on top of everything else, Wellness Warrior, the one that kind of hurts the most is the neurological decline. Because for the most part, people look fine, but then they get something like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. And those are conditions that just steal away the essence of who we are. It's not just years of our lives we're talking about anyway. We can't think, we can't do, we can't express ourselves. Our doctor's concerned about the number, and it's genuine, right? They really want to help us. Actually leads to the problem. Because our doctor is going to see that number and walk through that list I just gave you, those conditions that you can have, and explain to you that that elevated number means that you are moving closer and closer to one of those conditions, maybe multiple. And now we are afraid. And we want to know what the next steps are. We want to solve this as immediately as we let's fix this. We want to be told that there's an answer. And the doctor gives us exactly what we want. A simple directive that solves the problem. Stop the meat, fill the prescription, come back in 3 months. Simple. And now we're faced with a dilemma. We went against the standard diet guidelines, and our body seemed to be reacting well with weight loss, less pain, and more energy. But now we have elevated uric acid sending us towards all kinds of serious medical conditions. The lab results are actually contradicting our body's results, and we feel trapped. We don't want those conditions. And even if we do ask questions, the doctor keeps pointing back towards the meat that we brought into our diet that we're so sure was helping us, right? That's where we got the results from. So now we are afraid. We've had blood tests before, and our uric acid was not flagged elevated until we changed our diet, until we brought in all this meat. We are afraid that the doctor and the standard advice about diet has been right all along, and now we become compliant and do as asked. And I remember this, Wellness Warrior, when I was sitting in the doctor's office telling him that the medication that he gave me caused this horrible side effect. And he goes on his computer and he does some little searching, and he looks at me and he goes, no, that's not one of the side effects of this medication, so you need to keep taking it. They're so confident in what they tell us that if we aren't just as confident in what we know about ourselves, about what we've done, we'll stop what we're doing and follow their advice. Because that is what we've been taught to do, right? When someone with credentials and a white coat tells us to do something, we follow their instructions on how to correct the problem that they're telling us to correct. That is not stupidity. That is a completely reasonable response to a situation where someone with more knowledge gives us an answer. But this is also a doorway to control. We were feeling better. Our pain was lifting. Our energy returned. And our body was telling us one story, and the blood test was being used to tell another story. And for some reason, we've been taught that the number on the page outranks the feeling in our body. Every condition on that list is real and is quite serious. And every single condition on that list is related to uric acid. But the link that the doctor made from uric acid to red meat is where the problem actually begins. When we break down the purines in red meat, we do create uric acid. But when we look at what the research actually shows, we see a different picture. So let's start with something very basic. The human body has been processing purines from animal protein for millions of years. That system works. It's designed to work. The uric acid produced when we eat meat is part of a process our biology understands completely. But when the liver encounters fructose, something very different happens. Fructose is not processed the way that other foods are. When it arrives at the liver has to work so hard to break it down that it depletes its own energy reserves. The fuel that our cells run on get depleted. And when that energy crashes, the biological byproduct of that crash is a significant dump of uric acid into the bloodstream. That is the first part of the mechanism. The second part is insulin. When we eat a diet high in carbohydrates, insulin is elevated. And chronically high insulin tells the kidneys to hold onto uric acid rather than excrete it. So, the fructose is driving production of uric acid up, and the insulin is blocking the exit. That has been happening for most of our lives, right? Before we began our keto or carnivore diet, it was happening. And removing sugar from our diet seems like it should have helped the situation rather than make it worse, right? And that's why the doctor's assumption seemed to make sense. But our uric acid reading had been rising, be it slowly, for years. They just hadn't reached the threshold for our doctor to label us as having elevated uric acid, right? That would have prompted a prescription. What the doctor and we aren't paying attention to is that when we stop eating carbohydrates, our body begins producing ketones for fuel instead of relying on glucose. And this part is really interesting. The kidneys use the same pathway to process ketones as they do to process and excrete uric acid. Now, in the early weeks of fat adaptation, our body is still learning how to run on ketones again, probably because it hasn't done that since we were babies. So it needs to really so it's overrun with ketones, and it prioritizes clearing those ketones as it adapts because that is what is actually healthiest for us. And while it's doing that, uric acid temporarily backs up in our blood. We just have a little bit too much. It is not a new disease. It's not even a real problem. It's a traffic jam at the kidney level while our body learns a new fuel system. And the best part is that it's temporary. As soon as the body becomes fully fat adapted, the kidneys find their balance, and typically that will take like 6 to 12 weeks, okay, for your everything to get, for you to become fat adapted and everything to be normalized. And then our body will be back to clearing that uric acid and our numbers will come down. And often, Wellness Warrior, your uric acid numbers are not just going to come down to what it was before. They're going down lower than what they were before, back to what they should have been the entire time, back to baseline. Our blood tests were a snapshot of our adaptation phase, not evidence that keto or carnivore was causing harm. What we really need to understand here is that returning to the standard diet is resuming those high fructose, high carbohydrate diet that was the path to the list that the doctor pointed out in the first place, versus getting through the temporary spike of uric acid, right? While our body continues to adapt to our keto or carnivore way of eating. Now, one thing that most doctors never tell us about uric acid is what its role actually is. We are presented with it as if it's some kind of toxin because it's only ever spoken about when we are having a problem with it, right? But uric acid is not simply a toxin. Uric acid is one of the most powerful antioxidants in the human body. In fact, uric acid accounts for 55% of our blood's ability to neutralize free radicals, those damaging molecules that accelerate things like aging, that drive our inflammation and contribute to chronic disease. Those things, uric acid in the blood, 55%. Like, our body does not produce uric acid by accident. Our body isn't that stupid. Each time it is produced, it is a calculated action that our body is taking. So when we eat meat or any type of animal protein, so that includes poultry and fish, right? Any kind of animal protein, breaking them down creates oxidative work because it's metabolically damaging process, right? It takes a lot of energy. And as part of that process, our body produces uric acid, not as a waste product to be eliminated, but as the antioxidant response to our species appropriate diet. Are we understanding what that means? Meat not only brings in the nutrition and energy needed for good health, its byproduct, so those purines from that same meat, gives our body what it needs to create the cleaning crew. Meat brings both things in. That's not a broken system. That's great choreography. The system is brilliant. And that's why we've been able to exist within this system for millions of years. We just keep getting smarter and smarter. But Wellness Warrior, in the last 2,000 years, we figured out how to have fruits and vegetables year-round, meaning our body has to now process fructose without a break every single day. We've introduced inflammatory seed oils, another thing our body has to process out that causes oxidative stress. Uric acid is an amazing antioxidant under the right conditions. So like in the blood, in the extracellular spaces where it belongs. But modern food companies have us eating high fructose corn syrup. So there's our fructose word again, problematic. Seed oils that inflame our body and create problems in fatty tissues and cellular layers where uric acid cannot help us. Some of this pain we're feeling, it just can't go there and help it, right? Now add to that the fact that our insulin is so high that uric acid can't be cleared. And now we have a new problem. Uric acid builds up in our body and crystallizes in our joints, our connective tissue, causing pain. If the buildup of uric acid is excessive, it can also get into like trapped inside the cells. And now we have a real problem. In the wrong environment, uric acid actually adds to inflammation. Uric acid didn't cause any of the damage, Wellness Warrior. The damage was already there because we were overeating carbohydrates. Most of them come attached to, so sugar is a glucose and a fructose together. It's coming in, and our body can't clear it because our insulin is high. The damage was already there, but uric acid got trapped in the damage and becomes part of the pro-inflammatory. And now the doctor's pointing at it and saying, "Oh, look at your uric acid, and now that explains your pain," and it does. But why? I need you to understand that all your doctor is looking at is that uric acid causes gout pain and causes these problems, but he's not looking at why it was there in the first place. I need you to look at that. Here's the simplest way to think about everything we just covered, because I want to make this really, really easy for you. It's like you're making something out of wood. Maybe it's a table, a little coffee table, and you need a few screws in the joints to hold the structure together. Right? But if you need 2 screws and decide to put 20 screws instead, rather than making it stronger, you're actually making the joint weaker, right? You're destroying the fibers of the wood in the right amounts, in the right places. Uric acid, amazing antioxidant. In excessive amounts, in the wrong places, uric acid harms us. I hope that's clear. Because what we need to keep in mind is that none of what we learned so far puts any of the blame on red meat. So why does every resource that we have access to, every doctor, dietitian, and health authority point their finger at red meat? And it turns out that red meat is the perfect scapegoat. First, it's an ancient food, right? That means that it's a single ingredient, so no one can actually own it, right? The profit margins are ridiculously small compared to everything else that we eat. So it's perfect for them to focus on, because compared to those foods that drive uric acid, high fructose corn syrup, seed oils, processed foods, those things, they are extremely profitable. The industries built on these products, Wellness Warrior, has spent decades and billions of dollars making sure that uric acid, that conversation, never gets connected to their product, even though it is. Here's something we're sitting with. Fructose is between 7 and 10 times more glycating than glucose. That means it damages our proteins and accelerates aging 7 to 10 times as much as glucose. That research has existed since 1981. And yet, the conversation about uric acid and gout has remained pointed at the steak on your plate. The gout medication our doctor prescribes is a lifetime prescription. Not because gout cannot be resolved, but because a resolved patient is not a revenue stream. And the low purine diet we were sent home to eat, that eat these things instead, it removes red meat and organ meat and replaces them with whole grains, legumes, and low-fat dairy. It sends us directly back to the carbohydrate-heavy, fructose-delivering foods that were building the problem in the first place. That is not an accident. The system does not profit from our understanding what's good for our body and what's not good for our body. It profits from our compliance. And the most effective way to maintain our compliance is to make sure that we never connect the dots the way that we just did, right? Now that we have this complete picture, the first thing to do is plan for your conversation with your doctor, right? That's what we need to do. Our doctor is working with the information and the protocol that they were trained on. They're not bad people. They want good for us. But their information is based on a population that is eating the standard diet, actively gaining weight, and waiting for their prescription to help them to feel better. That protocol was not designed for someone in an active fat adaptation, keto or carnivore diet lifestyle. The blood test results look alarming through that lens because it is being read through the wrong lens. So first, what our doctor needs is more information. And we're the ones that can give it to them. It's better if they get it before we ever walk in the door, but we can give it to them. When we go to our next doctor's appointment, we bring the full picture, right? And we're prepared for their advice based on the standard diet, right? Like, we need to be prepared for that. It's important to point out that we were able to reduce our joint pain, heal our skin issues, increase our energy, improve our weight. Like, the list of things, like, I could keep going. My tinnitus is gone. Like, the list of things that have improved because I changed my diet. All things that we were struggling with for years before changing our diet, that they would tell us, you need to lose weight, you need to lose it up and down. And we never could lose that weight. The goal is to get our doctor to order enough tests to get the whole picture. They need to look at our triglycerides, our HDL, our inflammatory markers alongside our uric acid number, because they need to get a more complete metabolic story. And here is something worth understanding before that appointment. When we lose weight, the fat is being broken down and releases whatever it had been storing. And fat cells store what? Cholesterol. So when our LDL goes up during an active fat loss situation, like what we're doing on keto and carnivore, that is not a sign that something is going wrong. It is a sign that fat loss is actually happening, right? You're not losing muscle. You're not, right? You're losing fat. The cholesterol was always there in our body, just being held by the fat cells. Fat cells also store toxins. We need to understand that too. Those are the toxins from breaking down food, the chemicals in our environment, the inflammatory seed oils, and processed nonsense that they get us to eat. All of that gets stored into fat cells when our body is struggling because it's just trying to get it out of our system as fast as possible. Well, guess what? Those come back into circulation when we're doing an active fat loss scenario. A blood test taking in the middle of that process is a snapshot of transition, not a verdict on where we are headed. All of these things that you're going to see in your blood test, right? So this is exactly why the most important thing that we can ask for from our doctor is a retest in 8 to 12 weeks. And you're going to choose 8 or 12 dependent on where you are in your, like, how long ago did I start? Because it takes like 12-ish weeks to get through this entire process. They say, where am I in my process? And I come back in, am I going to come back in 3 months? Am I come back in 2 months? Depends on where you are. By that point, fat adaptation will be closer to complete. Closer. I mean, it could take you a longer time than that because, again, this is a process your body's doing. The uric acid traffic jam likely will have resolved by that point. Probably feeling better. I know that I can say 1000% by 3 months, all of my joint pain had been resolved. The cholesterol from active fat breakdown likely will have been cleared by that point as well. And if not, be almost cleared. Your blood test will look better. And the blood test will show us the stable picture rather than the transition. All of this making the assumption that the diet that you're doing, you keep doing it appropriately, correctly. If you're doing keto, you stick to your keto plan and you allow your body to keep moving forward. If you're doing carnivore, same thing. That is a completely reasonable and scientifically defensible request to make of your doctor. And a doctor who understands what we are describing will also recognize that. Now, practically speaking, there are a few things that we can do right now to help ourselves in this process. So if you're already having joint pains, for example, or some other signs that, uric acid is getting high, stay hydrated and maintain your salt intake. So dehydration concentrates uric acid in the blood and is the most immediately addressable trigger during this transition flare-up thing that you're having. Don't forget that carbohydrates keep water. When you take a lot of them out of your diet, you're going to lose a lot of water, as we all love that weight loss part of the story, but it now means that you don't have as much water. And so you need to drink water with salt, or put more salt on your food, or do the things that help you to hold on to some water. The next thing we're going to do is look at everything we're consuming, not just the obvious fructose sources. We already removed them probably, but everything. The berries our community tells us are completely safe. They're no problem. Berries have fructose in them. The onions and garlic and peppers that we keep because they're vegetables, or because we use them as spices, or whatever we're doing with them, they have fructose in them. The spices when we use without thinking, like just the powdered ones that we sprinkle on everything, they have fructose in them. For a body that is still healing, even those small little amounts of fructose can be enough to keep the inflammation from resolving, Wellness Warrior. And if we have already had clear signs of metabolic damage before starting our new diet, like let's say you had years of high insulin, or repeated gout flares, known kidney stress, having a keto-friendly doctor alongside you through this entire process is just the right thing to do. Do your research and find a doctor to help you. And it's not because the process is dangerous. It's because clearing a backlog of toxins and whatever from your body that took decades to build up deserves the proper support. You need to treat this seriously. Take it seriously. Wellness Warrior, the road to health has many doors on it. Some of us are going to start this process when we're young, right? We're going to walk on this road and we're going to do amazing on low carb. And we're going to decide to stay at that door. The rest of us are going to keep walking. And then we're going to get to that keto door and feel remarkable and decide this is where we're staying. And when you turn back and you look, you're going to see that you walked miles away from that standard diet. That stupid diet that was causing all the damage in your body. You walked so far away from it. But some of us, we're going to have to go further. We're going to want to go further. We're going to either still have things that we want to solve, or we're just going to want to be in the best possible position to future-proof ourselves. And we're going to keep walking, and we're going to move towards that carnivore lifestyle, giving our body the cleanest possible environment to work in. The healthiest destination is the one with the fewest toxins, obviously. Now, how far you decide to travel is entirely your own decision. My job isn't to tell any of you where to go. It's to make sure that we understand what we are choosing at every point of the road, right? Now, if staying the course feels hard, when the blood test comes back and the doctor is concerned and the people around us are worried, that is where having a plan and someone to ask questions makes all the difference in the world. And that's exactly what the coaching program is built for. The link for the coaching program is in the description below. Click on that if you want to come work with me and get some assistance. If this conversation changed the way that you see blood work, your body, and the information you've been given, there's another conversation that I want you to hear. I'm going to link it here, because the same system that told us uric acid was caused by red meat has also been hiding a problem inside the keto foods that we were told are very safe. So foods that our community approved, foods that we eat every day without even thinking twice, and the damage they cause is just as quiet and as serious. So click on the link. I'm going to make you over there.